And so while, if you ask me from a legal perspective, is justice in Ukraine possible? I would say absolutely. Today we have the legal tools to prosecute these kinds of crimes in a way that we didn't before the Second World War, and in a way that we didn't have enough experience with after the Yugoslav conflicts. But after the Yugoslav conflicts in the 90s, we resurrected international criminal justice, and we have quite a lot of experience with how to effectuate complex international criminal prosecutions. So we have a legal framework, and we have experience. The third question is the question of politics. Obviously, we've never ever prosecuted a sitting member of the Security Council for these kinds of crimes. That is a fact. But when I research these kinds of conflicts, what I see is that the arc of justice bends long. When I like to think of something more positive, I think of the case against the former dictator in Chad, who in the 80s made a regime of systematic torture of his own citizens. And I think no one in the 80s seriously thought he would ever be prosecuted for this. In the 80s, this was before the Yugoslav Tribunal, it was before a lot of these things in international criminal justice happened. But what happened was that when he in the end fled Chad and began an asylum process in Senegal, there were victim groups, civil society, who secured documentation of his torture centers. And that documentation was used 26 years later. It took 26 years to create a justice mechanism in Senegal, where the African Union came together and created a special tribunal within the courts of Senegal to prosecute him. But it happened. And no one would have thought that was possible in the 80s. No one would have thought that was possible in the 90s. No one thought that was possible when I lived in Senegal in 2005. It wasn't possible before it was possible, politically speaking. And that is the hope, and why I think this Peace Prize is so important, because it's groups like yours who are securing this evidence in real time, which will mean that we have the historical evidence that we need if this takes a very long time, if this is measured by decades. I hope it isn't. But if it is, that record doesn't go away. And I think that is what gives me hope in a long-term perspective, that if we measure this in a 25-year perspective, yes, I think many things that are not possible today will be possible.